Pablo, Pierre-Marie, if you want to take a couple of minutes to introduce yourselves a little bit more in details and introduce your company. Pablo, go ahead. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Pablo Ramirez.
I'm Pablo Ramirez. I'm in charge of procurement and development of Framatome cybersecurity. I'm in charge of the offer of products and services and maintaining security conditions. Pierre-Marie, good morning. I'm Pierre-Marie Laure. I'm the manager for services and control command and instrumentation systems at Framatome. So Framatome, we're an OM. We provide systems for nuclear plants in the French fleet and 1/3 of the plants in the world with the automation parts in the heart of the nuclear reactors. So maintaining in security conditions, Pablo, could you give us a short definition to start with? So what does that mean? I would say, what are we talking about here? This is the fact that we maintain this level of security at an acceptable level for the whole duration of the life cycle of the infrastructure, from the design, the implementation, the commissioning, the operation of a solution, and even decommissioning. So during the whole life cycle, basically, of this infrastructure, of our product. In fact, the objective is to maintain this level that will gradually decrease over time with new weaknesses and implementation of new equipment on the network. So in fact, the objective is to maintain an acceptable level for this protection or this exposure to cyber risks. And this is something that we do in different ways. So we analyze weaknesses, etc. We'll go into details. So you're a member of the GMELEC. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And then we'll talk about the white paper that you published. So GMELEC is an association of electrician players in France. And as part of this, we published a white paper on maintaining safety conditions. So the 4 main parts, but there's 4 pillars in this white paper. Do you want to start with the first one? Sure. So we see it as a type of continuous process that is endless, in fact, because you have to maintain this level of cyber exposure at an acceptable level. And so in fact, this first pillar is indeed, first of all, the inventory. So you have to know what you have on your infrastructure, have this vision.
Cette vision application aussi. Donc il y a différentes visions en fait.
And so in this vision, the idea is that we have a comprehensive inventory to secure it later on. This is the first thing. So you have to know your environment well. And the inventory, being aware of the various elements that are potentially hidden sometimes that you have to identify. And second of all, second pillar would be what are the vulnerabilities and the patches that we can apply to our equipment to make them secure and maintain this level of security at an acceptable level. Third pillar is more how can we establish the remediation plan? What are the actions to follow to increase this level of cyber security? And fourth pillar is more to do with more operational. What will we implement? What are the measures taken to bypass and to correct the weaknesses, and how can we apply or manage the backups, etc., etc., to apply this remediation. Pierre-Marie, you wanted to add something regarding this 4 pillar? Yes, 4 pillars that we implement at a given time. The MCS starts in the design phase where we define the policy and the mapping of the system. We manage, as Pablo mentioned, in the first phases, the design phase, the MCS as such concretely starts in the guarantee phase. And so in this case, this is the beginning of the MCS, maintaining in security conditions, and the challenge is really the duration over time. So basically, as Pablo mentioned, the level increases and degrades over time. It makes sense because, in fact, we have new practices. For example, overnight, there's a pandemic, and then we have actions that will be done remotely for remote maintenance. So we change the organization, maybe a new supplier, a new service provider, new weaknesses that will appear as well, probably. So obviously, the level of security will degrade. So the challenge is to maintain it in an acceptable level and think about regulated systems such as military programming laws. For instance, you have a commitment to reassess this level of security every 3 years, and for systems that are not so critical, it might be 5 years for you to define. It's a governance issue, and then you will challenge this level of security again, and so this could be done with audits. So it could be with technical audits, organizational audits, and then for the risk analysis, it could be EBIOS or other in the OT or industrial sector. You mentioned the interface between safety and security, and then you challenge the barriers that you implemented in terms of organization and technical. And we can go back to some of them, such as managing witness and detection. But this is really from bottom to head, as Pablo said. The challenge is to maintain over time. In nuclear plants, we see it in particular with the extension of life duration, not only in France, but in the US as well, 40, 50, 60, 80 years. So we have to maintain this level of security on top of managing obsolescence.
What's important in maintaining the security conditions is the continuous thing, isn't it? Well, yes, exactly. So I will come briefly to this. We're going to re-homologate and then re-accept the risks. Raise the awareness, have actions that are continuous, and then the mapping of the system. For example, there are some specialized teams as well, but in the previous, we're talking about the software bills of material. This is something to master, whether it's IT or OT, of course. Now, you have all the vulnerability management, so we look into matching the vulnerabilities that appear on the market with vendors that publish their vulnerabilities, certain expert centers as well, and we match this database with the list of assets we have in our own ecosystem. Now, next we're going to try and patch. So is either an option for remediation. When you have a vulnerability, we will have a vulnerability debt. We try and patch them, for example. It could be implementing a specific surveillance, virtualizing some services, managing the obsolescence, and so on. So this is something we do in continuities that we see to vulnerability, and we have final analysis to try and remediate that. And there is something that is really specific in the industrial system that we're interested in, is detecting in real time the potential hacking, intrusions, events that are not that easy to qualify as it is in IT. So we're going to qualify that an event that is a fraud in the industrial system, and this is a continuous thing. We have seen examples of certain attacks. I'm thinking about Allsmar, this American company, who was distributing water and the gas mixes, sodium peroxide, have been modified. And they could react quickly because they had some continuous monitoring, so it should be done on an ongoing basis. So, Pablo, is this central? Well, yes, I totally agree with what Pierre-Marie was saying, is that the fact that this approach is an ongoing thing, it implies a certain governance and implication in the company's security policy and organization around that, and above all, coordination between the industrial teams, the cyber teams, or the cyber industrial teams. And I would say that there would be many things to say, because sometimes these teams come from different culture, and you have to sort of organize all that to make sure that this is an ongoing approach in place and durable approach. Pierre-Marie, maybe a provocative question. Can we do without maintaining in security conditions? What are the risks? Well, the first risk is that you lose the mastering of the control of your system. So phenomena are going to happen, and it can be measured, it can be seen. The risk is that you transform an investment that you've made into the cycle. In its the investment in cyber by design is going to turn into a cost. You're going to lose your investment and have, at the end of the day, a sum of architecture and solutions that are there, but we cannot master them, we can operate them, so we lose visibility, you lose the mastering control of the costs, so you transform investment, initial investment, into costs, and losing overall control. And also I'd like to come back to this phenomenon of erosion of security that we want to maintain at a certain level. We can accept that over time there is an evolution, notwithstanding the fact that we keep a continuous system. We can accept some erosion of security while maintaining it at an acceptable level. The risk is that we collide with the threshold that is acceptable level and get to attacks that are going to impact a whole lot of industrial systems with consequences on the life of people, whether distribution of water, as I said earlier, or fuel, disturbance in energy, and the problem of trust into the technology. Pablo, would you like to react to this? Well, yes. Actually, I would say that all the policies of maintenance into conditions of security are difficult to apply, because at the end of the day, within companies, we are faced with different cultures, people who have different background, and this maintenance into conditions of security will help harmonize, match various people, and therefore control, master the system, and know where you're going, to what risk you are exposed to, and make decisions accordingly. Because if you don't know what level of risk you are exposed to, you don't know what are the measures to be applied and whether we should apply them or not. So this is the danger of not applying MCS, is really exposing the infrastructure to a non-acceptable risk. Pierre-Marie, concretely, Framatome, MCS, how is it applied? Well, a good approach is to never forget that we're not working in cybersecurity for cybersecurity per se, but we are working with the business. So we can feel that at Framatome, because when we are working on a nuclear power plant, we are into major services, 10-year services, some specific repairs. So it is really the MCS is included in maintenance of operational conditions, replacing equipment, upgrades, you name it. And cybersecurity is included in that. So what is necessary to take into account, if you want to extrapolate a bit, is to take into account the business constraints.
Ok. Et même question. Oui, allez-y, Pablo. Oui.
Yes, Pablo. Well, just to agree with what has just been said, we, in the nuclear world, we implement MCS systems that are, I would say, dedicated to the nuclear industry, which is not always adaptable to other industries. One of the methods and experience could apply to other industries. In spite of all that, there is some adapting, because the nuclear industry is specific in the duration of contracts over 60 or 90 years, very long duration contracts, which is not necessarily the case in other critical industries. So same question, Pierre-Marie, how do you apply the MCS, but for your clients? Well, for our clients, it's usually unboxed into what we call the LTO, LTSA, so long-term support agreement, long-term operations, with this challenge of maintaining over time this effort. So either we provide some technology bricks to our clients who have some service centers that can operate them, or what appears more and more is that due to constraints of resources in cybersecurity, we have this capacity at Framatome to have federated in some expertise. We have subsidiaries that are experts in managing vulnerabilities like CyberWatch, or in the management of the action of system and detecting specific events with LNTs. So we now have over 250 experts. So we provide that layer of service and that expertise that is missing for some of our clients. So it could be technology bricks. We're not convinced that cybersecurity and especially MCS is technically centered. We provide this layer of services and expertise with a continuous surveillance of the more global context with cyber threat intelligence surveillance. So we monitor the latest threats and prioritize where we want to have MCS. We're not going to have to do it the same way everywhere. It's got to be prioritized and based on business and constraints, and also by the context of the threat. Pablo? Well, exactly. I think that we have the same issues for as our clients. We manage risks and we need to produce. So in the nuclear world, it's even more true because this is a continuous production. You cannot stop it when you want. So this continuity of production and this management of risks in parallel are issues that you find with our customers. And this is where I think that as part of the white paper, this is something that have been mentioned. How do you compare, or how do you run a demand in continuous production with the management of the risk and adequate measurement of the risk? So we're going to be taking a couple of questions from the audience. So do prepare your questions. I have one question left concerning regulations. How can the MCS be integrated or not into the current regulation of the NIS2 type? Well, I can answer about the NIS2. The MCS is everywhere. Nearly no rules. I think it's mentioned like 32 times in the Bill of Law that maybe we'll see in French law in June. So yes, it is taken into account in this. It was already taken into account in this one, including the military programming law as well, certain systems. Now, we're not going to content ourselves by an approach by compliance in the industrial systems. The approach by compliance manages generic risks, but also an approach based on risks, as I was saying earlier. We see that in the management of vulnerabilities. We don't take vulnerability with the CVSS scores of high level to then retransfer it to our clients. On the contrary, we're going to explain the context, find the remediation solutions that are not only to patch it, maybe patch, but check the non-regression as well. But there are several strategies for implementation, so we've got to come with this layer of expertise, an approach by compliance to manage risks, but also an approach based on risks to optimize these efforts. Pablo, would you like to answer this? Well, this concept has been in existence for a long time. It was in the previous NIS and other laws, also in the LPM, so the military programming law. So even if we didn't have this component of obligation, as we can find here in NIS 2, yes, definitely. This concept has evolved. Today in NIS 2, as we can see, European Directive, Article 21, is that this management of risk, the management of supply chain, all this is included in the maintenance in conditions of security. And there's even a chapter on vulnerability. So there's continuation in regulation, and we're going towards a kind of a more significant way to encourage the operators and the players to apply the maintenance in conditions of security. So, do we have questions in the audience? Do you have a partnership with major players who in turn have equipment? I'm talking about the Nozomi probes, for example. Do you have a cooperation to define significant memos? Do you leave traces, including the major partners that we cannot do without? Well, thank you for this question, and Pablo, you can complement my answer if you wish. We have cooperation, yes, we do. In certain cases, we want to preserve some technology bricks, and the subsidiaries I mentioned earlier on have been working with us on the cyber detection of threats since 4th November 2024. We've wanted to secure sovereign technology bricks in terms of our activity. What we've been developing in the industrial world, and this is where it's interesting to connect with the business, is the capacity to detect events, but also to do it at very low layers, including the nuclear command control with the right time scale. It's great to do it 50 milliseconds, but for each millisecond, even better. It's great to have tools that can describe the understanding of protocols, to go very low in the layers, which provides, again, for the business who need to qualify certain events from a non-performance, obsolescence, preventive, predictive maintenance. So there is a gain, including for the business. And in addition, we have developed a layer to qualify certain events, incidents that could be some adversary hacking to master the chain of command. Pablo, would you like to add something? Well, yes, actually, in the world of cyber today, we cannot do without partnerships and connections with other players. We cannot have all the technology and develop all the solutions. So today, the interfaces are actually something that is important. We're going to interface with solutions that are for inventory, vulnerability. So this is key. The key to success, actually. So yes, it is something that we do at Framatome, but other companies do it as well. And it is with these connections that there is value, because we don't have unlimited resources for all solutions. Do we have another question? Yes. Well, good afternoon. You've talked about your expertise in expertise. So what is your policy of hiring, recruitment? What are the skills that you are targeting in addition to cybersecurity? Because there's an impact of the business knowledge to be working on risk analysis.
Merci, bonne question. Là aussi, je me permets, Pablo, n'hésite pas.
Well, Pablo will complement if I miss something, but in the nuclear, the wording is we are looking for the odd applicant, of course. So people who are experts in an industrial context, in nuclear context, and then control and command type of context. So we have some aspects that are purely safety aspects, availability, security, and so on. On the other hand, the interface with security, this availability, confidentiality, you name it, and the traceability, the logs are very important. So people who are also skilled in cybersecurity. So this means that we are looking for this hybridization of talents. So we have several ways of doing it. Either we find talents that have a diversified journey. So we have rather atypical profiles, but also a lot of internal reconversion, people who come from control command who are experts in instrument systems. And also we have the opportunity to have technology that lasts over time. So therefore we can preserve that expertise. So it can be internal talents to whom we're going to add a cybersecurity skills, so they continue developing in this system.
Très bien, merci beaucoup.
Very good, thank you very much.
Dernière question. Monsieur.
So we have a last question, here we go. So we have this question, especially for control command or instruments. We find more and more equipment that are offline, isolated, hence the importance of the inventory to know that this equipment is there, especially in critical areas. My question is, how do you think you can have MCS on this equipment that are isolated offline? We can talk about the PLCs, maintenance PCs that are isolated and self-standing. Well, thank you for your question. There are various ways of dealing with this issue, but mainly the fact that you need to access this equipment from another way if they're not connected. Online, we can list the information that we can find in a number of files, or extract information from the assets in one way or another, the backups that we may have. This is something that requires some actions on a one-off basis, but also what's more challenging, I would say, is the fact that we maintain that over time. And these are systems that are offline, that update the information, but we can never have the same level of refreshment of information compared with the connected equipment. Now, some equipment are really offline, difficult to access. In the nuclear world, we have a number of examples like that. So actually, the fact that we can actually segment them or isolate them also helps limiting risks. And that's these two aspects. So have an inventory, a one-off inventory, and try and have update information, and also have some containment and isolation type of measures to limit the risk. Pierre-Marie?
Les systèmes, alors on pourrait penser que certains systèmes de contrôle commande sont
We could think that certain systems of control command are isolated, which is the case. We've talked a lot about standalone systems, but we shouldn't stop at that. The systems are not connected, they're not connected to the web, and therefore nothing happens. So thank you for your question, because actually we realize that there may be some systems
On l'a vu par exemple avec l'attaque sur
So we've seen that with the attack to North Hydro.
2019.
Back in 2019, they were attacked by IT, and still all the plants were in manual mode because they were not in a position to have the logistic data to run their plants. So we can see there are some side effects, and there could be some updates. And then the maintenance of in operational conditions. So we come with removable peripherals. So we don't have a synchronous connected system, but it is asynchronous. You could also have a number of programmed scheduled maintenance, a supply chain. There could be some internal threats. So we shouldn't actually have a suspicious look for the colleagues, but we could have some state threats that try and penetrate systems, including in human organizations. And so it's a very good question to raise this control command system.
Très bien, merci pour vos
questions. Very
merci
well,
messieurs.
thank you for your questions. You can give you a round of applause.
Voilà, j'ai encore
And
une
I
minute
still
de
have
votre
1
attention à vous
minute of your
demander,
attention
j'ai
to
une annonce à
require. I
faire.
have an announcement to make. I'd like to inform you that the 22nd, 23rd of May, there will be an INCYBER territory event in Le Creusot for the transformation of systems. It's organized by the Creusot-Monceau urban metropolis to gather private and state players to build resilient ecosystems for the 4.0 industry. So 22, 23rd of May for this event, and Framatome will be a partner of this event. Thank you very much.